Okay, hello everybody. We are back with another professional panel here. It is currently in November 16th. Wow, it's November 16th, almost at the end of the semester. We appreciate everybody coming. I'm going to get right to it here. We're going to start with our professional introductions, again, starting with Elena, then going to Shelby, then ending with Dr. Buford. So Elena, take it away.
All righty. Well, hi, everybody. It's nice to see you and meet you all. My name is Elena. I am a 2019 graduate from the University of Akron. I got my undergraduate degree in exercise science pre-PT and decided to go the PA track. I then went to Baldwin Wallace University and got my Master of Medical Science and graduated this past May. I am now working at Summa Health System at their Barberton campus as a PA in general surgery. It's been fun, getting your hands dirty in surgery and then also rounding in the inpatient side and seeing some outpatients too. So that's kind of a day-to-day thing for me, and no 2 days are the same. So it's been great to kind of learn, and I'm excited to hear your questions and provide any guidance that you might need. So nice to meet you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelby York. I went to Ohio State for undergrad and I got my health sciences degree with a minor in psychology. And then I went to Ohio State's PT school and I graduated in 2020. And then I'm getting ready to finish up my orthopedic physical therapy residency at Ohio State. And then I actually just got hired on full time. So I'll be sticking around and be one of the ortho PTs. And so I see patients every day and had a little bit of teaching as well with residency, and I'm involved in some research. So kind of can talk about a couple different aspects of that if you have any questions.
And my name is John Buford, and I am the director of the PT school at Ohio State. And Shelby did a research rotation with me many years ago when she was getting ready to apply to PT school. So I've been the director at OSU since 2011, and I've been on faculty here since 1998. I graduated from PT school in 1984 from the University of Wisconsin at Madison.
Wonderful. Okay, so start with some questions now. I have one pulled up. This is a great question. I didn't ask it, although it is I think it's a fun question. So in 3 sentences, can you guys explain what you would do on a basic day-to-day? I know that Elena even said no day is the same, but on your most average normal day in around 3 sentences, could you just describe what you do? All 3 of you have very different jobs and each interesting and important for their own way. So if you could explain what you do in 3 sentences or less.
Oh boy, this is fun. I work in 3 different settings, so this might actually work out well. All right, so here it goes. I start my morning on the outpatient service, answering phone calls, seeing patients, and contacting folks. I then make my way over to the inpatient side, see inpatients, put any orders we have there, make sure everything's wrapped up, and then I wrap my day up in the OR and assist as needed.
Okay, I treat in one of the new Ohio State clinics. So I spend my days treating a number of different orthopedic conditions. Can range from post-op to chronic pain to kind of just whatever else sits in front of me that day. So I'm just clinical care in the outpatient setting all day.
Let's see, I would probably spend some time doing some teaching or working on getting ready to do some teaching, grading papers, whatever might need to be done with that part of my job. I would probably spend some time working on some kind of service obligation, whether it be committee work or administrative work for the school, or I'm involved in some national association type work. I might have some project I'm working on for something like that. And then maybe the third thing I would do some type of mentoring or, conferring with faculty, whether it be to help them make plans for what they're going to do for some part of their career, or, talking with a group of faculty about some decision that we might need to make for the program. Those would be ways I would typically spend my time.
Wonderful, thanks. Okay, we'll open the floor. If you do have a question, you think of it while someone else is talking, feel free to just hit the raise your hand button so I know to swing it to you next. But I'll open it up super quick for any first questions here.
So I have one for Shelby. I know residency isn't required for physical therapy. So what made you choose to do a residency?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually decided I want to do a residency pretty early on in PT school. I think it's a really good way to set yourself apart and really kind of build upon clinical skills that you get during clinical rotations in school. So with the residency, just for people that don't know, it's where you kind of pick your specialty and you spend a year to a year and a half in that specialty, and you get clinical mentorship. You might have teaching opportunities, research opportunities, depending on where you go. So I felt like it was a really good opportunity for me to dip my toes into all of those different parts and get really strong clinical mentorship just to kind of set me up. And I will say, as I'm finishing up, I do not regret it by any means. I think it was the best thing for my career and kind of my confidence in the clinic and treating patients. So I would recommend it to anybody. I think it's a very good kind of just like stepping stone. And I think when I talk to some of my friends that just went straight into the clinic, they kind of come to me for questions, and they come to me for like just to talk about patients or different situations that you have. And I think it's really kind of just taught me some different skills and really helped me take a step ahead. Sorry, my roommate is grabbing dinner.
You're all good. Rob, we're gonna toss it over to you now.
All right. Hello, everyone. So my question is, what are some avenues I should focus on as an undergrad to build my resume for PT school and kind of set me apart from others?
I can talk about this from the PT student side, and then maybe Dr. Buford can talk about it from more of a faculty side. I got a really good piece of advice when I was preparing for PT school, and it was pick 3 big things that you want to get involved in. So I picked 3 big things to get involved in that I could really get involved in compared to just dipping my toes into a number of different things. So personally, I got involved in research. Dr. Buford mentioned that I worked in his lab. I actually worked in like 3 different labs when I was an undergrad. So I kind of got a couple different opportunities. I was a teaching assistant for anatomy, which I think really helped with teaching skills. There are some teaching opportunities at Ohio State in the PT program, and then you can kind of continue on and help me with residency as well. And then I wanted a fun thing. So I was the director or vice president of our activities board at Ohio State. And I think this helped with a lot of leadership skills. So I think one thing that a lot of people don't do is work on soft skills a lot of the time. And I think that really helps you in the clinic and in the professional setting. I think everybody's like, I need to do all these things to check the box. But I think something that can set yourself apart and really build upon those soft skills is a very helpful thing. Because I play in the concerts for Ohio State. That doesn't really relate to PT school, but I think it taught me skills that I could translate over, which has proved to be very helpful.
That is so funny. I didn't even know that about you all these years. I was in charge of booking the bands at the student union at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
World.
Wow, that is funny.
We had Big Sean come, and I had to put the butter on the pole to keep students from climbing up to see Big Sean. So that's my big
that's awesome.
leadership.
I think Shelby is giving you great advice, and you should do exactly what she's suggesting. And the thing that I think I typically would say to people is very similar in that get to know your professors very well. And I gave this advice to my children when they went to college, and none of them wanted to be a PT. It's fine to get good grades. It's great to get good grades, but find some way to get involved with one of the professors, because at some point you're going to need a recommendation. And, I read a lot of recommendation letters, and some of them say, sat in the front, asked good questions, got a grade, and my class is really hard, so he must be smart, and it's just like, what does that mean to me? Now, whether or not you love research, the fact of the matter is faculty at universities have to do research, and they need help to do it. So the avenue that is most likely going to be available to you to get to know a faculty member really well is help them with their research. It's just kind of how it is. That's going to put you in close contact with that individual over time, where they're going to be able to write a letter for you that says, this kid solved problems, difficult problems. And when things went sideways, this kid didn't lose their mind. In fact, they helped make the situation better, not worse. And they'll be able to speak to those character traits that we care about in physical therapists, besides came to class, sat in front, got good grade. Sometimes you'll find a faculty member who's doing some community service work or something like that. That's not research, but whatever that passion of theirs is, right? If you can find somebody who's doing something like that, that they're passionate about, that you think is also cool, and you can tag along with that person and help them do that, you're going to forge that relationship. It'll make school more fun and more interesting. And everybody thinks I don't have time to do this, but it actually energizes you and feeds your curiosity, where studying doesn't seem like such a chore, and you get great recommendations out of it. So that would be my advice.
Thank you.
Super quick, I just want to follow up, Dr. Buford. We have our labs and our research just opened this past semester.
Yeah, what a nightmare.
We've had different students kind of starting to get back in there, labs starting to get used more and more. Is there a certain either area of research that looks better, or is that as long as you're involved in some way, that says enough about your drive and your passion for it?
Yeah, we don't care what they did as long as they were passionate about it. And because if it's drudgery to you, you're not going to do well, and you're not going to impress the person you're working with. So you ought to pick something you think is interesting. We have people do, projects in dance and, study bugs and God knows what. It doesn't matter. The point is that they were engaged in what they were learning.
That's wonderful. Okay, Zach, ask away.
So I have a question. I believe it's Elena. That's your name, correct? I'm sorry, I don't want to say your name wrong. So what made you want to be a PA? And what do you think is one thing you did that made you stand out when applying to PA school?
Great question. So I knew I wanted to be in medicine. My mom's actually a physical therapist assistant, and my dad's a paramedic. So I kind of grew up, went to, bring your kid to work day, and thought maybe PT. I did some more shadowing, and I shadowed a physician, and I was like, oh, maybe medicine. But wow, medical school is like 12 years. And that's crazy. And he's like, well, I have a PA. Like, do you even know what that is? And at the time, I was like freshman or sophomore in high school. I didn't even know what a PA was. I shadowed her, and I was like, this is so cool. So the big selling point to me was that you get to practice, in medicine, and being a PA, a mid-level provider, like, PA is you're not nailed down to a specialty. So I work in general surgery now. In 2 years, if I decide to go somewhere else, I could work in psych, or I could work in family medicine. So that flexibility was a huge selling point to me. And also, the fact that you are helping people, and you're still involved in medicine and able to make a real difference in people's lives. So that really sparked an interest. I shadowed some more, and when it started to, roll around time for college, I found Akron, and initially it was a biology major because that's what most, PA or pre-med, kids do. I actually found Rochelle at a table, and she was like, do you ever think about exercise science? And I was sold, that's how I kind of came to be. So yeah, that's kind of what made me choose PA. And one thing I think that stood out when I was applying to PA school is kind of what Shelby and Dr. Buford were saying, is to get involved. I actually worked with Dr. H on a Wellness Wednesday project. I don't know if you guys have heard of Wellness Wednesdays at all, but she snagged me up and was like, hey, we have an opening, and you say, you want to be involved in the community and get some volunteer hours. How about you come see what this is about? And, we did a lot of health education for senior citizen residents in the Akron area. And I did do a little bit of research. I did my capstone project with her for that. And it was a really cool experience that allowed me to give back to the community while also kind of spreading the wings and, putting myself out there to make those decisions. So when it came time to apply for PA school, they did ask about that. So that was a really cool talking point. So yeah, kind of piggybacking off of what they say, and like get involved in something you want. No matter what it is, I think it's important, whether it's PT, PA, OT, whatever route you're going to go next. Even if it's in, career, and they're asking interview questions, just as you're able to say, I was involved in this, and this is what I learned, and this is how I grew. it's a really great talking point when you're going through the process.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hey, Robbie, do you have another question? I don't want to skip over you.
Oh, no, you're good, man. I forgot to take that down. Sorry.
Perfect. Nope, you're all good. So I'm going to flip it over to Dr. Buford. Now this question for you. What makes Ohio State's DPT program stand out compared to other DPT programs?
Well, okay, so you're asking me to brag, so I'll brag, but only because you asked me to. So normally I would never do a thing like that. Let's see. I think the scale. I mean, look, the picture behind me kind of gives you, the scale of what we have here. We're basically this building here is a parking garage, which they stuck up in front of our building about 10 years ago, but our building's right behind that. And we are right in the middle of the medical center. So, we have proximity to a cancer hospital, a major acute care hospital, an inpatient rehabilitation hospital, a developmentally, a center for children with developmental disabilities, a brain and spine hospital. There's outpatient clinics. Worst case scenario, you have to get on a shuttle bus and ride 15 minutes to get from our school to one of the outpatient clinics. But a lot of times you can walk. There's nursing, there's dentistry, there's optometry, there's all this interprofessional education opportunity going on. There's engineering, there's psychology, there's social work, there's speech and hearing. I mean, there's everything. Okay. So the opportunity to not only, I think, and what I'm not saying, which maybe I take for granted, is we've got great faculty. We've got this national reputation. So we get great students. People want to go to school here, and we get to, pick from among the best students in the country. So your classmates are awesome people who are really capable and really interesting and really want to be a good physical therapist. And of course, you learn as much from them as you do from your faculty. And then we get the same thing goes with the faculty. Faculty want to work here. So when we open up a job, we get a bunch of applications and we get to choose the best people. And they stay, they like it. So you end up with this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy thing going on once you sort of reach that reputation level where it all just continues to feed itself. A lot of great research resources. We've got strong connections with the clinic, with the residency program. So like Shelby was a teaching assistant in the lab for the last year and a half. So that the students, your teaching assistants in your labs are actual physical therapists who are in the residency program. And the hospitals, same song, second verse in terms of the quality of the residency program. So Shelby acts like, well, I just stayed at Ohio State. Well, that's not very easy to do. There were 40 people applying for 3 residency spots, and she's one of the 3 that got chosen. All right, that's not easy to do. Not every student who goes to Ohio State is accepted into the residency program at Ohio State. You have to be pretty good. So you've got great new physical therapists as your teaching assistants in your labs, and it all just kind of feeds itself. So it's the people. It's the quality of the people that we're able to attract and retain, that you're around, that you're learning from, and the resources we have. The inside of our building is probably not our selling point. It's a little old. It's built in 1971. It's kind of utilitarian, but it's in the midst of a great set of other resources that you can go to and learn from. And so the beauty of the classrooms would not be one of the selling points, although they're building a new building. So in 2 or 3 years, you might have beautiful classrooms, but right now they're sort of old, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's the people that are in them, I think, is what makes it good. I know that was a long answer, but
that was a wonderful answer. Wonderful answer. Carly. Go ahead.
Okay, so that was actually my question because I wasn't sure if I was going to be here. But to add on to that, what would you kind of say that you look for on like a resume when students are applying? I know we kind of talked about some things we can do to better our resume, but like what are some things that you specifically look for?
Okay, well, we have a holistic review process. And so we look for experiences, attributes, and academics. And that's just our school, right? So what you need to do is go to the website of whichever schools you want to apply to. And they should be telling you what they're looking for. If they're keeping it a secret, that should be a concern to you. Okay, they should be telling you exactly kind of student that they think will succeed in their program. It shouldn't be some deep, dark secret. Make that public, what we're looking for. We're looking for people who are resilient and curious. We want people who add some kind of diversity to our student body and to the experiences that people can bring to each other. We want people who are leaders, who are, accountable and responsible. You could make a list of what you would want in a physical therapist that you would trust to take care of you and your body, right? Compassionate. We've thought very carefully about the characteristics we think would make for a good PT. And we try to find some way to see if we can discover those things about our applicants through what they write and an interview. And sort of the natural, certain things in the application are going to be there. We're going to know if you're a good student. That's not hard to figure out. You're going to have grades. Maybe we don't look at test scores, but if you want to look at test scores, it's not hard to figure out whether somebody's smart and they know how to play the school game, right? It's not hard to figure out if somebody's typically it's not hard to see if they've got some real leadership experience, some work experience. Those things get listed. Not everybody embellishes or describes them to the point you really understood. What did you do there? But that's not hard to get from a paper application if the student has kind of helped you out by what they've written about what they did. It's pretty hard to figure out whether they're ethical or whether they're compassionate or other things like that you really care about. So what we've done is we ask questions in addition to the normal application that we hope will provide us with some of that information in writing. We share this with our applicants. We have instructions to the people who write your letters of review. Like, please tell us about these aspects of this person, because we're pretty sure we're not going to get it anyplace else than from these people who know you, and we care about whether you're compassionate and I'm blanking on them now because I've read 100 applications and my mind is a little bit numb. But we have a list of 10 things that we're looking at, and the ones we don't think are going to show up automatically, we try and prime the reviewers to give us in their letters, so that we at least have a prayer. And then we really focus our interviews on those things that we typically can't be too sure about from what we've written in the application. But we don't need to ask you about your grades in the interview. We've got those. All right. So we try and put all those things together and we weigh them equally. And we put that on our website. We make it as obviously possibly can about what we're looking for. Every program's got its own little way of doing that. But that kind of becomes your job, to go and read their websites and look at their mission and vision statements and their values. And if that doesn't ring true to you, you might not be a match for the people who are in that program, because they've thought very carefully about every word in those mission and vision statements. Those aren't just sort of things they threw together that they argued for days about every word in those things. And they're trying to make it really reflect who they are and who they want to be. So pay attention to that. And if that resonates with you, then you're probably going to flourish there. And if that seems bizarre to you, then you might not be happy.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. That was a perfect answer and a great question. So I'm going to throw it back to Shelby super quick because this one's specific to you. So could you explain the difference between an orthopedic physical therapist and a normal physical therapist who has not gone to residency?
So when you graduate from PT school, you graduate with your doctorate of physical therapy. And so you could be an orthopedic physical therapist. There's not really a big difference. But I will say you can get something called you can take your orthopedic certified specialty exam, or OCS. And so this is where it's basically like a second set of boards that you take that you get the extra letters behind your name, and it shows that you have additional knowledge and that you're kind of a more specialized physical therapist in the orthopedic world. And so the same thing is present for like neurological physical therapists and like acute care, all that stuff, or geriatric. And so with a residency, with that OCS, which I'll be taking that test in March. So I'm taking it basically 2 years after I graduate. Normally they say you should wait like 5 years if you don't do a residency to take that test. So it's almost like I'm jump starting that. But the goal of the residency is to get that OCS and those extra letters behind your name, showing that you have that extra additional knowledge and that you're a certified clinical specialist in that field. So, you know, I work in a clinic where there are just regular physical therapists that are orthopedic, like physical therapists, but they don't have that specialty that shows, you know, like if you were finding a PT to treat your mom or something, you want to go for that OCS because they're a little bit more specialized and they have that clinical knowledge. So it kind of just like sets you apart in terms of like the difference between the two. Does that answer the question?
That was a perfect answer.
If I can just throw
Fantastic.
on to that, I guess I would say the other thing you can rest assured is that they've been well mentored by high quality physical therapists early in their career, and that they haven't sort of had to figure it out for themselves. Because in order to have a qualified residency program that's accredited, they have to prove that they have high quality mentoring programs for those residents. They can't just leave it to chance and let them figure it out for themselves. So you know that person's had solid mentoring. In addition, it's not just book smarts. They've been forced to learn to apply it with a mentor looking over their shoulder, questioning them, really challenging them in their clinical thinking.
Wonderful. Okay, before we go to Katie, we have a question from in the chat real quick, and it's to Elena. And it is, what other PA schools did you apply to before picking BW?
That's a fun question. Gosh, okay. I think I applied to 10 total. So I applied to most of the ones in Ohio. So Baldwin Wallace, obviously, University of Toledo, Findlay, Mount Union, Marietta. I didn't apply to OU because they were very new and I think they required like OChem 2. And this girl didn't do very good in OChem 1. So I just stuck to the schools that, OChem 1 is fine. And then I applied to a couple. I think I did Arcadia University. They had a campus in Delaware and Philadelphia. I did Alderson Broaddus in West Virginia, tiny little town, and Chatham University in Pittsburgh. So I interviewed at Chatham, Alderson Broaddus, where I grew up. And then as you're going through these processes and, kind of like Dr. Buford said, you really read into the mission and vision, you get to know that school and really get a feeling for it. BW was just home for me, kind of like Akron was. So I applied to and ended up at BW.
Wonderful. Okay, Katie, go ahead.
My question is for Shelby, and if Dr. Buford wants to chime in too, that would be great. So I am applying to PT schools right now, and I want to specialize, but I've been advised against that by a couple different people because they said if you like pigeonhole yourself, then you might change your mind in the end and not want to do that. And so I would love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty important thing to note when going into PT school. I think there are so many different types of PT and different patient populations, and it's important to kind of just dip your toes into everything. So with your clinicals, you get a little bit of a taste of everything, but I think you can have passions that you like and pursue things outside of that. So I liked orthopedic physical therapy as I entered PT school, and I did orthopedic research in PT school. So, I had my toes in that, but I still, went full in on the neuro, went to all those clinicals, did everything that I could to experience it. And, you have to learn everything. So I would recommend have an open mind, really try out everything. But if there's something that you like, I don't see any reason as to why you can't pursue other things, but just make sure, I didn't even know there were PTs in the NICU when I started PT school. I don't think I even realized until my second year. And I think if I had completely shut myself off, I might not have even really taken the time to learn that or like look more into it. So I would just say look into the resources, but if you have a passion, it's okay to kind of learn more about that passion in PT school as well. Dr. Buford, I don't know if you have anything to add on.
Yeah,
that.
no, that's a perfect answer. You'd want to make sure the school is good at whatever it is you think it is you really like. Different schools have different strengths. If you told me prosthetics and orthotics was your thing, I'd say you should probably go to Northwestern, not Ohio State, because we just kind of do that, but we're not super great at it. If you want to do orthopedics and sports, I'd put us up against anybody. Most numbers here who want metrics. That's good. But be open minded. A lot of students come in and say, I'm going to be a sports physical therapist. And they come in and they become neurologic physical therapists. And so when you get into the clinic and you treat those patients, people are often like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing. I never knew about this. This is what I have to do. And so, like Shelby said, be open-minded.
Awesome. I have a question real quick, more towards Dr. Buford. Through my experience personally, talking to different people in different branches of different universities, a lot of people have said that there's, in the sports physical therapy world, which you just mentioned, which is pretty common for students wanting to go into, there's kind of a fading out of the athletic trainer, DPT, the people that have both, those people are kind of fading out and people are going more towards either one or the other. Have you seen that as well? And at Ohio State, do you guys recommend that students who are going into the sports physical therapy world also pick up that ATC as well?
Well, I don't think it hurts at all to have an athletic training background if you're just absolutely dead set on being a sports physical therapist. It's a somewhat redundant to do that and then to go become a sports certified specialist physical therapist, although there is more that you do, but a lot of what you learn is in a residency program for sports physical therapy would be what athletic training people already knew, would probably be a certain portion of it. There's stuff that goes beyond that just because of the different scope of practice of the PT versus the athletic trainer, but some of the day-to-day practical experience of what's it like to be on the field and deal with an athlete. The athletic trainers already know that stuff. I think it is becoming less common, but not because anybody thinks it's a bad idea. It's just a logistic thing. More, the athletic training world's going to a master's degree. So why would you go get a master's degree in one thing and then a doctor will pick your profession, because you just that's a very expensive way to go to school. At that point, you might as well be an MD. You're going to be in school for 7 years, right? And they get paid a lot more. So what are you doing? It's a practical matter. It's gonna stop making sense to try and do both.
Can I add in one more thing as well? I will say I think a lot of the times people with the sports PT, I would push you to really think about what you want to do as a sports PT. So as a sports PT, a lot of the times people are doing on-field coverage. So I'm an orthopedic physical therapist, but I still see my fair share of athletes in the clinic, and I feel very capable and able to treat all of these athletes very well. And I have am working on my OCS. So I would just say, think about like, do you want sports coverage or do you want to be in the clinic? Because you can still treat athletes in the clinic without having that ATC. I was a health science major. I didn't even really know any of that until I got to PT school. So I would say just kind of think about like what you want your career to look like as well.
Wonderful answers and input as well. So I think I saw Elizabeth first, then Alexis.
So my question is for Shelby. I know you mentioned you had done research in undergrad and both in PT school. What were like the major differences between those? And was there anything once you got into your research in grad school that you noticed? So it was like, oh, I didn't really know this when you were doing it in undergrad.
I would say, so in undergrad, just for background, I worked in a breast cancer research lab, and then I worked in Dr. Buford's research lab, and we did some spinal cord injury stuff. I think I can't really remember, to be honest. And then I worked in a cadaver lab as well, and I worked with some car crash information. So I would say in undergrad, a lot of the times it was me working on just little things for like a grad student, any way I could help out. I had like some projects I worked on. I know in the cadaver lab, a lot of the times, like I just assisted when they did the dissections. I literally did not have any major role. I just helped. I didn't present, I didn't write papers or anything in undergrad. I was just a helper, but I think that was a good way for me to dip my toes into it. And then when I got to grad school, I worked in a lab that focused on hip pathology. So I worked with like just this certain hip pathology and kind of some of the different factors that go into that. And with that, I stepped into, like, I helped answer my own research question with that. And with that, I was working on abstracts. So I think I was able to get much more involved, but that's also because I wanted to. I wanted to learn more and see if that's what I wanted my career to look like. So I would say in grad school, I had a lot more responsibility, and not in the sense that it was like super overwhelming, that I couldn't handle it, but it was just, I felt like the professor had a lot more confidence in my ability because I was putting myself out there and asking for more responsibilities. So I would just say it was like more writing and more poster and presenting in grad school compared to undergrad. Yeah, but that was me. I also had friends that they did presentations in undergrad. It was just the difference. So I think it's just how much you want to get involved.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll go Alexis and then Zach.
So my question is for Elena. So I know that you came here to Akron and then you went to Baldwin Wallace. I don't know how much time that you had in between then. Like, I don't know if you graduated in the spring and then started in the fall. But I was just wondering, like, what jobs, because I feel like in the healthcare professional world, like, it's just kind of hard to get a job, or like, when, that, I don't know, that kind of pays okay, at least until, you go to grad school, because you don't have that master's, you don't have that doctorate degree. So like, what are some type of jobs that do you think I can get, or like just as a healthcare professional student?
Absolutely. So my journey was a little unique. I graduated on Sunday, walked across EJ Thomas, and was in the PA classroom Monday morning at 8 a.m. So I had less than 24 hours of a break between undergrad and grad. But I would recommend, as a student, the route I took was on-campus job, actually. So I worked as a tutor actually in the writing lab a couple of years. And then I worked with the area health education centers, the REAHEC, and pitched in actually for my Wellness Wednesday volunteering that I did with Dr. H. I actually got hired on to be the student coordinator and worked more with the data tracking side and, working with the housing units and kind of doing that. So on-campus work is always a great way to do that. And then I would encourage you to look at other options off campus as well. I was a PT aide down at Concord Therapy down in the Canton area. And it was great. It was a lot of, doing laundry. And over the course of my year there, I still didn't learn how to fold a fitted sheet well. But it was great. I got a lot of experience. The PTs were fabulous. They would be like, hey, we're going to do this e-stim. We're going to do this ultrasound. Come help me, come learn. So not only was that a great way to have a little bit of an income here as a student, but also to learn a lot. And then, I had friends that were STNAs, things like that, nursing aides and hospitals, patient care techs are, a great source of income and also look good on like an application. As far as PA school, I don't know if that's your goal here, but not all of the schools require healthcare experience. A couple people in our class actually worked in completely different areas. We had a political science woman who was in her 40s with 2 kids and decided to go back to school. We had a cosmetologist and we had some athletic trainers in there as well. So, whatever kind of you feel is the way to go is a great stepping stone. Also would just shout out some volunteering. I was up the street at Akron Children's for a couple years, just being a child life volunteer, and that counted for healthcare hours as well. So, STNA, PTA, things like that, kind of see what your comfort level is, what your schedule is. As far as going for grad school, anything pretty much looks good if you're able to get hands-on experience in that regard.
Thank you.
So Alexis, are you thinking you get the bachelor's degree and what jobs are out there with the bachelor's degree in exercise science? Is that your question? Or are you thinking about some time in between that and grad school?
Yeah, so basically what you just said, because I graduate this upcoming semester. Well, I graduate in this December. And then depending on what school I get accepted to, such as Ohio State, they start in the summer, or other schools I apply to, they start in the fall. So just like in between that time.
Well, yeah, then I think Elena answered your question there.
I also know, if you do have, the exercise science degree, I had some friends that went and worked in personal training. They were able to find some opportunities there. Even at the YMCA in downtown, we're able to pick up some shifts there and get some hands-on experience there, actually use their degree a little bit more. So yeah, if you do have a more extended period of time where, a patient care tech or something like that isn't the route you're thinking, looking into fitness areas and ways to really get that exercise science is always an avenue too.
I have
Okay.
one thing
Thank
to
you.
add from friends' experience in undergrad. I had a couple friends that were exercise science majors, and they actually worked in a lab in their year off. They were like assistants. They like had a little bit of experience, but they just found like a listing, and that's what they did. And they worked for that year until PT school. So just one other thing to kind of put on your radar.
Thank you all.
Awesome. Zach, go ahead whenever you're ready.
So I have another question for Elena. Did you feel, I know exercise science is not a typical route for PA school, so did you feel prepared for PA school compared to like a biomedical studies major, which I know a lot of people who are PAs take that path to get to PA school?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I often say one of the best decisions I made was going that pre-PT route. Because you can substitute all of your prerequisites. So I didn't do strength and conditioning. I didn't do a couple of the other classes that, pre-PTs and ex-phys would do, and substituted that, with your OCHEMs, your microbiology, your hard-hitting core classes that, they need to see that you can succeed in, to get to PA school. But I felt very prepared. A big thing was MSA, actually. When I got to my cadaver lab, I felt I was a little bit ahead of everyone just because I had that background. Also, your O&A class is, a great way to kind of be like, okay, I thought outside the box before actually getting to grad school about, research and, that kind of avenue. So I felt very prepared, kind of with the exercise science background. I think it gave me a little bit of a leg up too, because I already had some clinical experience. I already worked off campus. We did a lot of the interprofessional communication, with the ex-phys and stuff, using the lab, having, different students come in and actually run through things, I knew how to read EKGs and I blew my classmates away. So that was kind of cool. They would always come and be like, oh my gosh, how do you know this? Like, oh, I actually ran stress tests at Akron. Like, I did the VO2 max. So I felt like it was a great way for me. Other people might like the more regimented science type stepping stone way to get there. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like I had a little bit of a leg up going the pre-PT route.
And one more question to go off of that. How important is organic chemistry? Because I am not enjoying that class at all.
You're never going to use it. My program director actually said the reason we put, applicants through OChem is because PA school, PT school, grad school is rigorous, and OChem is something that typically drives you up the wall. And so they want to just know that you can handle a class like that. And I'll be honest with you, I took it twice. The first time I took it, I got a C-, and that didn't stop me from getting into all the PA programs I interviewed at. So if you're struggling, don't worry. It's not the end all be all. They just want to make sure you're capable of putting in the work. So I never thought about OChem and all the different bonds and groups when I walked through the door of PA school. It's just something, it's good to have that science background, but it's not going to be a marker of, if you're going to be a good PA or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, as we get close to 8 o'clock here, think of any last questions that you guys have. Raise your hand as you guys feel like you're ready to ask. I'm going to ask one more here. This is specifically to Dr. Buford. I looked it up on a few different sites before this. I'm not sure if this means anything to you, but this is kind of the basis of the question. When we're talking about rankings and these rankings of different graduate schools, and US News puts out this 100 schools and never really give up criteria of what they're based on. I've talked to other program directors and I've heard that these rankings are based off of what other program directors vote. It sounds like the AP Top 25 poll, to be honest with you, in some respects. How much weight should students be putting into these rankings when we don't really know what they're based on versus when we go and visit and actually talk to the professors themselves?
Well, it's not very scientific. It's the opinions of the program directors and what influences the program directors' opinions. They go to national scientific meetings. They see the kind of research that's being presented by the faculty and students from those programs. They probably, like in the case of Ohio State, are aware of a residency program and think it's good. Of course, the residency program is run by the hospital, but not the PT school, and they know that, but it still influences their opinion. So I would tell you that whatever the best physical therapy school in the country is probably included in the top 10. And the best 10 physical therapy schools in the country are probably included in the top 25. Is the order perfect? I doubt it. But it does have that self-fulfilling prophecy effect that I spoke about earlier, where for whatever reason, we're silly, competitive human beings and we think it matters. And so we do get better students and better faculty than a lot of programs because of that ranking. And so, hey, if that's the game, I'm going to play to win. So it does drive things like that. And I think that, I would say we're probably in the top 5 or 6, even though we're ranked 9th, from my opinion of what I see going on around the country. Now, one of the things that they don't know is how well we train physical therapists. It's all based on what they see the faculty doing on a national level. I'm on a national board of directors. One of our faculty is vice president of the APTA. We have a lot of visibility, and that feeds it. We could produce crappy physical therapists and we might still have a good ranking, right? I mean, they're not measuring what do our clinical instructors think of the students that we send to the clinic. That's not being measured. But guess what? When you attract really, really good students and you have really, really good faculty, you end up producing pretty good physical therapists. So I do think that we produce good PTs from our program. We certainly try, and And we consider, most of my time and most of my effort and most of the time and effort of all of our faculty is spent on our entry-level doctorate of physical therapy student program. And then we also do research and service and other stuff, but most of the faculty spend most of their time trying to make great new PTs. So I don't doubt that every other program in Ohio is doing a nice job producing good clinicians, but I do think that we have something that is above and beyond with just that synergy that we're able to create with all of that excellence across the board in all of those areas coming together in one spot.
That's a great answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Alexis, if you want to hit up next.
I just had one last question. This can be for Elena or Shelby or both. What were some of the toughest challenges that you both faced as a grad student?
That's a great question. I think one of the greatest challenges for me was figuring out a schedule and way of studying that worked. I was always like a pen paper type person in undergrad, and then I got to grad school and there were 300 slides and how was I going to write this all down? So I actually ended up investing in a laptop that you could flip and take notes on the slides. And I not failed, but didn't do well on my first 3 big tests in PA school. They said there's either the students that do really well or there's the students that need a wake-up call. And I was the student that needed the wake-up call. And that was a big challenge for me because I was used to, like Dr. Buford said, being a good student, getting a good grade, sitting at the front of the class. And that was a big challenge for me. So learning to take a step back, really figure out a way to not only hear the information and write it down, but to truly synthesize it and apply it was a challenge. And once I got kind of a good study schedule, figured out some friends to meet up and study with, and figured out the way that I should be taking notes, it really clicked and it all came into, fruition here for me. But that was a big challenge. Anytime you transition from one environment to another, there's always a learning curve. So that was it for me. But, you get through your challenges and come out stronger.
I think that the wake up call is pretty common for a lot of people. I definitely had it in PT school. I was a lone studier in undergrad, and then in PT school, it's important that you study in groups. So I definitely had to kind of get used to that. But I think personally for me, it was kind of balancing everything and still feeling like I had somewhat of a life outside of grad school. I waitressed my full time throughout PT school. So I was working quite a bit throughout the week. And then on top of like studying and trying to work out and all that stuff, I think it just took some time for me to get adjusted because I didn't want to feel like my whole life was PT and PT school. I wanted to have some form of family and friends and maybe not talk about PT one weekend. So I think that was my struggle for a little while because I think it's pretty easy to not lose yourself, but just become very involved. And I think it's good to be passionate about your career, but I also think it's good to keep some sense of yourself throughout the whole thing. So I think it took a little while, but I was able to kind of get a hold of things near like end of first year. So that was good.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Let's just say that what we see is students who are used to memorizing stuff and like learn this class, forget that stuff, go on to the next class. Professional school is really one course. For the purpose of keeping the university happy, we divide it into different courses with different numbers and different instructors and stuff like that, but it's all actually just one whole thing. And the divide and conquer strategy doesn't work anymore. So you really do have to synthesize and integrate. And the other part of it is that there's a lot of gray. There's often not one correct answer. And if you're used to just memorizing and going back and regurgitating, you got a big problem on your hands because there might not be a correct answer. And so that's why you have to study with people, because you have to learn how to argue with your classmates and support your arguments and find those gray matter things in between where it's kind of like, well, it kind of depends, but I think this is probably the right way to go in this situation, unless this happens. And you can't think that way by yourself. You have to sit there and hash it out with other human beings. And probably if you're a real strong student, that frustrates you as an undergrad because it slows you down. but you're no longer with mostly bozos. You're now with a bunch of other really great students, and it's okay. They won't slow you down. In fact, if you're not careful, they'll finish before you on your group project. So you have to learn to trust that process to really hash it out with other people and study that way.
Those are two awesome answers. I'm going to open up for, I have one last question. Does anybody want to ask a question before our final question here? Wonderful. Okay, so last question is, you've all mentioned different national associations and meetings and just kind of going over this research process and what happens at these meetings. Now, we go to, with our club, we go to the ACSM meetings. So we're a part of the Midwest chapter. We're sending a group to San Diego next summer to go there as well. We always go to the ones up in Chicago or in Indy or wherever they are. What is the benefit of going to those meetings, either as you've presented or as you've gone as a student?
I think I'm up first in the order. So I actually didn't go to ACSM, a little bit of a spin here. I got involved in the pre-PA club and did some things with them. But I did I think it was the University of Akron interprofessional like poster panel and did some things and did a competition there. And it was great to really collaborate with other people who are both kind of and also kind of branch out and see what other people are doing. And I know at ACSM, you guys, have different, chapters, and everyone can kind of come together and go to different things. So I think it's great for you to kind of see what other people are up to, see what's kind of going on, and, able to present and then bring stuff back and, further your own education and research. But I'll let the other two panelists kind of speak a little bit more about ACSM and kind of, what they've seen, but there's my small take on it.
I actually haven't been to ACSM either. I went to a couple of the PT ones in PT school, but I would say there's two big things for me. I think the first one being networking. So I think it's really good to, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I need to network with all these big shots and like get all this information and get my name out there. But at the end of the day, I think it's those small relationships that are more beneficial. So talking to other students, talking to other people that are at the same level as you, seeing, what they're doing, other opportunities that they've gotten involved in, and then, talking to other people as well. But I think just building connections, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I need to talk to this PT when I'm there because they're doing the best research. I think it can come from just a simple, like, talk to someone when you're in line for something. And I think that's a great way to make connections and learn. The other one being learning about the new opportunities and just some other things that are happening around PT, and maybe some subjects that you wanted to get more involved in or learn more about. Especially a lot of the times conferences, the new big thing is coming out and they're talking about it there, or the new research paper. So I think that can provide a lot of insight, and maybe you can start to apply it in your clinical care as well.
Yeah, those are both great answers. I think, if you keep coming back, you see your friends there. You develop these relationships with people after you keep going, and you'd be surprised how many of those people you meet at some of those first conferences end up being your friends 20 or 30 years later. So you build these deep networks. That's a big part of what happens there. You get to sort of compare what's going on. What are students from my program learning? What are students from other programs learning? How are we doing? You get a little index from around more than just your own local little network, and you'll probably discover that they're doing a pretty decent job training you in exercise science, and that there might not be that much new that they haven't already covered in your classroom. And then you come home with a little more confidence about your professors. Or you might come home and say, wow, I didn't think this professor is any good, and now I'm sure, but whatever it is, you get some extra validity on that, because you get some, a national level of expertise or even regional, whichever, to compare to. Sometimes I like to go to things I don't know anything about, and just learn something new, and spend, a couple of hours in a conference on something that's just not in my area that I hear a lot about, especially in my role as a program director. If I've got a faculty member in that area who's doing something and I want to go learn more about their area so I can do a better job understanding what they need and stuff like that, I'll go do that. But even before I was a program director, I would do that just to sort of expand my mind a little bit. So you can do that.
Awesome. Those are 3 wonderful answers as well. So thank you everybody for the questions. Very well appreciated. Thank you professionals for all your great answers. So we're going to end here with how we always end. I asked the professionals here to leave us with one piece of advice that they've picked up through their careers, whether it be in school or in a professional sense as well. So we'll go in the same order. If you guys just want to kind of hit us with whatever you thought was important that you didn't know when you were our age, that you do know now and that you wish you knew, that'd be an awesome way to end here.
All right, everybody. So I think my big take home, big piece of advice, as cliche as it might be, is always ask questions. When I was first starting as an undergrad, it was kind of nerve-wracking to feel like you didn't know what you were doing or were always asking questions and, kind of putting yourself out there. I think it's easier to remain quiet. Then you get to grad school and you're like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm going to be doing for my career. I need to ask questions because if I don't, who will? And it's nothing to be ashamed of, even if it's something, hey, I didn't get this from the PowerPoint. What did you mean by that? Or when you get out into your clinicals, hey, why did you, pick this treatment over that treatment? Why this antibiotic in this instance and not this approach? Being sure to always ask professionals that you're shadowing or that you're, out on clinical with. It opens up a new door for opportunities. And I will say, being a recent graduate and kind of on my first PA job, I ask questions every day. Today, I asked my surgeon how to send pathology and how to put that in the computer because I got the sample, but I didn't know how to put the order in. And if I wouldn't have asked that and I could have just, guessed it and put the wrong order in, then, something could have gone wrong. So there are always people out there to help you. I work with a wonderful nurse practitioner who has kind of been my guiding light. And he's like, anytime, you're not sure, speak up, because it becomes, not only your unwillingness to not speak up or to, seem like you don't know what you're doing. So I'll just keep quiet, but it gets to the point where it's patient care. And the right thing to do is speak up, advocate for your patients, make sure you're well informed and, following the best treatment plans to get the best results for them. So as silly as it might sound, even in your undergrad, get comfortable with asking questions, get comfortable with exploring new avenues because it'll continue to open doors and it will make you an even better clinician in the future.
I would say I wish I had told myself to breathe more in undergrad. I got a C in chemistry. I did. I was not good at chemistry. I thought it was literally the end of the world. I remember just sobbing to my mom walking home from an exam because I was like, I'm not going to get into PT school and I'll never be able to have a job. But it is okay. At the end of the day, it will work out. I completely can stress. I have been through it. I went through it in undergrad and then in PT school, bad grades at the end of the day, just think of it as a learning experience. And I know it's a lot easier for me to say it now, but as I've gone through residency, I've tried to take the mindset of let's just take a step back and try to learn from the experience instead of dwelling on it and being miserable as a result. So I think it's important to enjoy the experience. And at the end of the day, the bad grade will move on. You have to pick yourself up and just don't dwell on it. So that's my biggest piece of advice. It's okay to get a bad grade every now and then, just make it a learning experience and don't do it a bunch. Just learn. That's all.
Yeah, those are great advice. It's been a little while since I was in PT school. So I think that what I would encourage you to do is maybe a couple things. One is have some balance. There's this desire to drive yourself into the ground to prove that you're this perfect student, and what you're going to be is exhausted. We have people who get into PT school and then, you know, in like January, they're accepted and they're like, so what should I do between now and June to make sure that I'm really prepared? I'm like, go hiking. Go swimming. I don't know, but just relax, you know, you'll learn what you need to learn in school. Calm down. So take some time, like she said, to breathe a little bit. And I guess the second thing I'd say is try and stay open-minded and curious, you know, and try not to pigeonhole yourself too soon. Trust wherever it is you go. Just kind of let the process unfold and sort of put your foot in front of the next and do the best you can that day. It'll make sense when you graduate, but there'll be points in time while you're in the program where you're like, this doesn't make any sense. These people don't know what they're doing. It can't be right. No one possibly could train a physical therapist in this manner or a physician's assistant in this manner. It's like, we might know what we're doing. So just go along and keep doing the next thing. And when we're done with you, it'll be okay.
Awesome. That's such a great way to end. I love doing that every time. I want to thank all of our professionals again for coming. It was fantastic. This was our best of the semester with all the questions that we asked and all of the things that we got to learn from you guys. So thank you again. For those of you in the club, I'll be sending this out in a YouTube video fashion or something of that sort for you guys to review it if you'd like. And yeah, thanks so much everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Yes. If you guys are okay with it, I usually do send out your emails for students to contact you guys with any questions. I see that they've already put it in the chat, which is fantastic. So if you guys would like their contact information, go ahead and look at the chat right now. And I'll send that out in the email after as well. So thank you everybody for coming. Feel free to file out as you'd like.